So do you feel good when you have like lots of things in your queue? Does it make you feel like you're a reader?
Well, I have a very large queue.
So I'm just saying, does that make you feel
But
better, like an accomplished reader, if there's lots in your queue?
I read, which is
I'm not
why I
saying you
haven't
don't.
gotten to
Just
them.
asking if it feels good.
It doesn't make me feel any way. It makes me feel like, okay, I need to pick a new book because I have
Well,
all
as long
these
as
in
you're
my
actually
queue.
finishing the books is the key thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure. I'm just giving you a hard time.
my
It's
God,
okay.
I'm
Don't turn red
mean.
on me. I'm Josh Sigman.
And I'm Bryn Rouse.
I'm a mortgage guy with a passion for helping people with their money and all things business. Bryn is my co-host.
And I'm a marketing girl. I am literally obsessed with it. Oh, and Josh has showed me how to save money. Quite a bit, actually.
Because of her obsession, I hired her to do my marketing.
And we've worked together for 10 years.
We launched Sigman Sense in 2020, a podcast about money. It's a podcast that teaches people how to save more, give more, create wealth, and retire early.
And we recorded and published 34 episodes. People liked it, and it was so fun.
But most importantly, we helped people. So we're excited to announce we're doing a second season. And we're mixing things up. We're moving away from money talks to focus on all things business: leadership, management, team building, book reviews, hiring, firing, operations,
Motivating teams, lead generation, time management, personality profiling, closing skills,
and of course, money.
and marketing.
We are inviting you to continue this journey with us, and we want your input. What topics would you like to see covered? Email all of your ideas to our podcast email address, sigmansense@gmail.com.
And be sure to click that subscribe button when you visit our channels. You'll get notified when we drop new episodes.
Are you ready? Season 2, Getting Down to Business. Welcome to Sigman Sense.
So Weston injured his foot. So he made All-Stars. Injured his freaking foot catching a fly ball up against the fence. He came down. His foot got caught in the fence, twisted, came down on it. So he's been limping like crazy and just like kind of a mess. But he never missed a practice ever, and never missed a hitting practice because we had a hitting coach for him. And we get to the game, and his coach has benched him for the whole game without any word to Weston, right? Because in our mind, I guess in retrospect, we're thinking, well, I guess maybe we should have assumed. But our communication to Weston was, whatever we need to do to get you ready for the first game. And so every night it was elevate the foot, ice it, rest it, all the things. And by the first game, he wasn't limping anymore, and he was able to run on it. But he was benched. And he was benched on game 2. And he was benched on game 3. And he could have easily been down and out. But every day he was like, can you take me to DBAT an hour early so I can hit? Like knowing that he wasn't going to play.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, that's very cool.
I was like,
Well, that's the
way to
kid.
be,
That
Weston.
kid is pretty special.
Way to be, Weston.
That's pretty special. Well,
But my mama heart was
yeah, sure.
not.
Yeah, you and my wife both freak out. Mama bear comes out. It's not a good thing.
not.
Sure. Did he slash the coach's tires, or what happened there?
I mean, you know, I don't want to incriminate myself.
Because you have several times on the show. Well, welcome back. This is Sigman Sense, and we're moving on to another topic that kind of correlates with what we've been talking about, which is all things business. But today we're going to talk about negotiations, and negotiation skills are different than closing skills, and it's really important to understand the difference, right? So closing skills typically are going to drive top-line revenue. Negotiation skills actually determine profitability. So it's a big, big difference, and I want to kind of explain this to you. So I'm in the mortgage world, and if I were to literally stand on the rooftops and say, hey, come one, come all, interest rates are 1% for anyone that shows up, I could line up people out the door. And unfortunately, the market doesn't allow for that because I would lose money on every single deal.
Right.
And like literally, it's not possible. And we'd go out of business. So could I get some people coming in the door? Yes. Would we go out of business? Yes. So there's a big difference between driving, sales, driving revenue, and versus profitability. So The reason why I bring this up is one of my favorite books recently, the last couple of years, we've talked about in a different show maybe, is called Never Split the Difference. And it's a book about negotiations. What I love about the book is it's written by a gentleman that was a SWAT negotiations guy, right?
I need to read that.
You haven't read it yet?
I haven't read it.
Oh,
I think
dude,
it's in my
story
queue.
after story after story. It's so good.
Okay.
It's
I need a book to read.
It's not a tactical. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It is a very tactical book,
tactical.
but it's got lots of stories.
So it's
that
like
are
a combo book.
Well, it's real life stories of this is the person that almost got her head shot off, and this is what I said to get that to not happen.
So crazy. Yeah, I actually think it's in my queue on Audible. I need to.
It's not gonna read itself, sweetheart. Hit play on the way home.
I just finished.
So do you feel good when you have like lots of things in your queue? Does it make you feel like you're a reader?
Well, I have a very large queue.
So I'm just saying, does that make you feel better, like an accomplished reader, if there's lots in your queue?
I read, which is
I'm not
why I
saying you
haven't
don't.
gotten to
Just
them.
asking if it feels good.
It doesn't make me feel any way. It makes me feel like, okay, I need to pick a new book because I have
Well,
all
as long
these
as
in
you're
my
actually
queue.
finishing the books is the key thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Oh my
It's
God,
okay.
I'm
Don't turn red
mean.
on me. So what I love about this book, so since you haven't read it, I'll tell you all about it.
I already told you should be a Cliff Notes writer
Well, this is a great Cliff Notes.
because you do really good
So
explanations.
the title is actually very cool. The title is Never Split the Difference, which is a negotiations book. But in the world of hostage negotiations, like they die or they don't.
Right.
There is no middle. And so
Yeah.
I love the concept because he says basically when you go into it, you have to assume that you're going to get it all. You're going to get everything you want. And I think most negotiation strategies and books and classes you might take are all about this win-win attitude of, that you give, they give, you meet in the middle. And it's just a difference of negotiation style. And so I really like the
And
concept. I think
mindset, right?
it's an absolute
Totally
mindset difference. It's an absolute mindset difference. It's win at all costs versus, we'll kind of see how things go and hopefully
or
it works
going
out.
in knowing what you're willing to give up.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a lot weaker going into negotiation, which we're going to talk about because there's a couple components to negotiations that we've learned over the years. And, it really starts with what mindset you go into. So you just brought that up, but the mindset that you would approach a negotiation with, and this could literally be negotiating with a roofer or negotiating with at a boutique store for some clothes, or certainly down at the marketplace in Mexico on a beach trip, right?
Yeah.
Versus the second piece is commitment. So, really addressing how committed somebody is to an outcome, how committed they are to their value, product, and service is a big piece of negotiations. And then the last piece is what are the actual, some examples of some skills that you could employ very easily with no negotiations background training or business classes.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of work through that probably over the course of 2 episodes. But really, let's start this way, okay? When it comes to negotiations, and this is in business, and let's just use an example since I love talking about money and the household. Let's just talk about how often people take the cost for what it is when it comes to a repairman or woman showing up and saying, I'll fix this, or I'll build this, or I'll paint this, or I'll mow this yard. And you say how much, and they say X, and you say, okay.
Yeah, that's me.
I would say that the vast majority of all Americans, whatever that number is, it's a yes or no. And that's the extent of it. And so clearly there's not a whole lot of negotiations to that.
Right.
It's just take or leave it, sucker.
Don't you think it falls on either side of the coin, though? You either, just take it for what it is, or you always try to get a better deal? Or is there any gray?
I think it's learned skills, right? I think some people grew up in families that always, you never accept it for what it is, and you just keep on beating up. And then the flip side is some people are just comfortable with the value that's being offered, and they don't, they can afford it. So why stress out about it, right?
But it also, I don't know, it can be very uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure. No, for sure.
I don't want to be insulting.
That's probably the big piece of it, right? Like
That's
if I ask for
it's
something,
like-
it's hurting somebody's feelings.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to.
It's funny.
Them.
It's funny though. Like the assumption when you go back into season 1 about all things money, right? The assumption is that if you want to grow your net worth, you increase your revenue and your income, or you decrease your so you increase your assets or decrease your liabilities. And so I was coaching somebody that and we had this conversation because he's really down to Like there's not much left to whittle on.
Right.
But I've got this basic assumption that there's something for sure there that you could negotiate. Well, the guy's had don't say the wrong one. So he has satellite, not cable. He has satellite.
Oh.
And he's got some streaming services, but very, very minor. So it's like two. I think it's Netflix and Amazon, off the top of my head. So not a big cost there. But he's got the satellite bill. And I said, well, when was the last time you called the satellite bill and said, I just want to pay less? And he said, well, you can't say that. Like, this is the bill. I said, yeah, until you say you're going to go somewhere else. So the homework assignment was literally like, call him up and just say, hey, listen, I really like you. I've been with you for a long, long time. And the cable's come to my area, and they're giving some great specials. And, I'd like you to have the opportunity to keep my business, but otherwise I'm going to go over and switch to cable. So what can you do for me? And miraculously, of course, he was offered a new client special that we can do for you today only if you sign for another year.
Well, hot diggity.
But it was 1/3, like not 1/2, not 1/3 off. It was 1/3 the cost. So it went from like $250 to $80 for an actually was an 18-month contract. So that's actually a negotiation skill, right? It's just the ability to have a conversation. And one thing I would point out in this case is it's always easiest to negotiate when you're comfortable with losing the relationship.
Right, or leaving.
Altogether, yeah. It's like, if you have the backup of going to cable, like, I've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. Why wouldn't I? Or
just go to, or upgrade your Hulu or whatever because Hulu has, if you pimp it out, like I like to refer to it, I mean, they've got live services and you have everything. Yep. And then you just grab a couple of friends to go in on it with you.
Split it 4 ways.
Split it 4 ways.
Yeah. So,
sorry, Hulu.
So this is literally one of those things that you got to think about, guys, when it comes to negotiation skills. Is it's not just about like negotiating a big monster contract. It's like, well, $50 a month forever, or $100 a month forever. It just adds up, and it goes back to just being being comfortable with the conversation. I think that's where a lot of people fail here. Is business is business. A lot of the time, probably most of the time, because most businesses don't make it personal.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that it's not a personal relationship in a lot of cases, because I think that's what we value the most, is when you have a great relationship with whoever, you go back to them again and again and again, right? But for most of the one-offs, they're almost all just business. And just having the conversation and being willing to be uncomfortable for a minute and being okay with the no. It's like, what's the worst case scenario?
I'd be more comfortable asking the cable company than like my yard guy.
Because you like your because you like your yard guy, right?
Yeah, I'm married to him.
Details.
But I would be more comfortable to say, "Hey, cable company," because I feel like it's not personal to them, and they know kind of what they can do or what they can't.
Yep.
And I don't know. I wouldn't feel like I was insulting them.
Well, relationship aside, the first place we got to start is we need to start with the mindset of the negotiation. Like, where does it start? So, going into this piece, I think situational setups is very important to consider that we've not spoken about before. So, my first boss, Mike, is 3 feet shorter than me. Weighs half my body. No, he's not 3 feet. He's like a solid foot, though. Maybe a foot and a half.
You're really tall.
I will tell you though, when I went in, I'm 6'5" and he's probably 5'5", and when I remember going in and sitting down at his desk, he was sitting at a mahogany desk that was like 10 feet tall, and the chair towered over that, and then whoever sat in front of him sat in like a baby chair. So I remember sitting with my like knees above waist level, looking up, because I was in the kid's seat and Daddy was looking down at me.
Right.
And I got to tell you that was not by accident.
Sure.
Another example would be, where do you conduct business? It's always best to conduct business in your place of business, like invite somebody to your office or invite them to your house. You own that space.
Yeah.
Meeting
or
in a
neutral, right?
Neutrals would be second option, right? So, budding relationships, making it feel safe is meeting a neutral neutral ground, but going to a person's place of business or to a person's home, they're for sure in control.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Whether you like it or not. So you got to be really clear about, if you're going to go into negotiation, the more high stakes it is, the more that's on the line, the more you want it to be on your terms, or at least equal terms, right? So a second thing I would bring up when you think situationally, obviously face-to-face is better than over the phone, or certainly worse is email. I see people that negotiate contracts all the time by literally contracts in an email form that's sent one way or the other. And yes, they can be effective, and the attorneys can battle it out and take a lot of your money because they charge by the hour, and they'll happily rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite on your behalf, right? But so much can be done just by sitting down in front of somebody and listening and learning and asking, and then it's harder for somebody to say no to you to your face.
For sure. And watching their nonverbals. I mean, that's a huge piece of it.
Yep.
Being able to see where they're really at and what kind of body language they're giving you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also understanding that sometimes the body languages that they're giving you might look bad, but they're intentional, which we're going to talk about. You know, there's like there's some of these things that you literally use to your advantage when you understand how to utilize your body to your advantage. And this is not like prostitution, guys. Like when I say utilize your body, it's utilizing your nonverbals to your benefit. What else do we add in this area? You think about how you dressed. So do you look the part? Like one thing that Jim Reed, one of my good friends, always told me is you want to dress for the job that you want.
Yeah.
Like it's a great way to think about it. So if you show up and you look like $1 million, then if that's in alignment with whatever the job is you're looking for, you have a better chance than the person that shows up that has unkept hair and unkept clothes. It just is some truth to it, right? So all those things setting the stage is super important. One last piece that I would add here, and I'd like to know if you think of anything else, is if you start with gratitude, gifting, and honor, you typically start in a better spot, right? So honoring somebody for their time, honoring them for the opportunity, honoring them for whatever, so being very thankful about that stuff. That's the gratitude piece. And, who doesn't like a small, thoughtful gift before something, right?
Yeah. So,
what might that look like in an office environment, even though not everyone's back at work? Are you offering stuff at the front desk? Like, are there beverages and drinks and food available? Or is there a book? Like, hey, I know we're talking about this. Here's this book with this, my signature inside of it. There's lots of things you can do to prep and do a lot of heavy lifting quickly just by being gracious and giving some honor and giving a little bit of gift up front. So what else did I miss before in this setup?
So what, I don't know what category this would fall into, but what about setting the stage of really identifying what it is that they want most at the end of the day? Like when this is all over after our meeting, I don't know what that falls into, or if it's part of negotiations or not. We can
absolutely lump that in the beginning, which is, you're starting a conversation with whatever. I think stating what the objective is and trying to better understand what you're hoping to get out of this is super important. The one thing I would say, though, is be really careful about if it's going to be a number. Don't do that up front.
Don't do that up
front.
Right.
If all it's going to come down to is I want X, this number, whatever that is, then it's setting yourself up for some uphill battle, although it's good to ask.
So maybe a different way, maybe a different way to approach it is to stay away from the number. Maybe you could go to, what are you looking to net? Like, is that still falling in the same trap, or is that?
No, not necessarily. But, we've talked about the number one way to overcome an objection is to say it first, right? So if you don't want to talk about that yet, you bring it up first. So, hey, Bryn, obviously you want to buy a car here, and separate of, the actual cost, is there anything else that you want to know or get out of this meeting today? Like separate of financing or separate of the price. I mean, obviously we'll get to that, but what else is it that you want to cover today?
I want to make sure that when I call and say this is broken, you say, cool.
Okay, cool.
I'll
so like warranty stuff, you want to cover that?
Yes.
What else?
I want to be out of here in like 3 hours.
Okay, so
max.
time's important. So 3 hours max?
Yes.
So it's 12 o'clock, so by 3 you're fine?
Yes.
Okay, cool. What else? So here's the point, right?
That's it.
but what you didn't go right to, I want the price of my trade-in to be $12,000. I want the price of my purchase to be $30,000. It's like, you just say it all, like, what else do you want? Obviously we're going to cover that, but what else do you want to talk about? Right. So all that goes into
and I didn't say that because you had already said.
Yep.
Outside of price.
Yeah.
Outside of price.
So all this is about the setup in general, and this is something that you can do in your office, in your home, negotiating with your spouse. Like there's lots of stuff that you can get into, right? Like how many trades do spouses do when it comes to, I really want to, fix up this room, right? Well, what are we negotiating here?
What are we negotiating?
Right? So, but let's start with obviously the mindset. So regardless though, and I think that the reason why people can't get somebody to come into their office and they have to go to somebody else's office, or the reason why, sometimes the terms of the meeting are dictated is one of the three mindsets. So the first and worst mindset to go into negotiation with is what's called a subservient mindset. Okay. So subservient mindset very simply is somebody is for sure perceived to be by both parties in control, in charge, the boss. And the other person is basically going to take whatever leftovers there are.
Right.
Right. So that subservient mindset is a really, really, really bad place to be because number one, there's not going to be a relationship no matter what happens.
Yeah.
There'll be a relationship, no relationship. Number two, somebody's going to be over like the dominant winner, and somebody will be a loser. You can't have a winner without a loser, right? But number three, if you are in that subservient side of things, you're in trouble before it even starts.
And it does not feel good.
No.
It does not feel good.
Yep.
I mean, you can feel it from the moment it starts, and it just feels super icky. I hate when I find myself in this situation. And there's a few examples I can think of that it just, and I'm not going to say it on this.
Oh, I'll give a specific example. So lots of lenders nationwide pay lots of money to buy leads from and help realtors get leads on the internet. We don't. One of the reasons why is that as a lender, if you have enough value in other areas, you shouldn't have to. It's a business partnership. You should be helping each other, and the client get what they want, and everyone wins, right? So I've literally been in a meeting, as have you before, where we get a warm referral to somebody. We sit down with somebody over coffee, and literally within the first 3 minutes, we're like, so how much are you going to pay for my leads? And that's basically the beginning and end of that relationship with me, right? And with you. And so that's what she means. That's what Brendan's talking about when it feels icky to go. It's like, holy crap. Like, would you ask a total stranger for money?
Right.
Well, if you're in a subservient mindset and you don't value relationship, you would, right?
Yeah.
If there's nothing else of value, it's always about price.
Yeah.
So the point here is that if you are, now the flip side is if you are in a position where you are the winner of the subservient mindset, the other person is in the loser's box, you're in a very strong position.
Yeah.
Now be really
careful. I don't know that I love that position either.
I don't love it either.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to point out is
it's better, but it's not. It
in the
feel great
negotiation,
either.
you're probably going to win more, right? But I think that the problem here is that you're in. This is where you see people that have fake positions of power that are power freaks, right?
Yeah.
So think about in a bureaucracy with multiple levels of management, the person that's got the power trip, that is the gatekeeper to the real person of power, who everyone hates and despises, but they put up with because they have to. It's just not. That's why I think I agree with you. It's just an icky spot on both sides if you're a normal human being. Right. If you're a likable, normal human being that likes people, it's the bad place to be on both sides. So how do you get out of it? Right. What's your if you find yourself in a subservient relationship, how do you get out of it?
Ooh, good question. So how do you get out of it?
And meaning move the negotiations forward potentially, but remove yourself from being in a subservient mindset.
Probably do something to set the stage in a different way, whether it's, try to get the appointment maybe over to your office or away from their office into a neutral ground. I'm trying to think. Gosh, it's been a long time since we've talked about this.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is you have to risk the relationship. So I love that we always kind of carry off of previous conversations. So in the last series on closing skills, one of them is called the takeaway close.
Yeah.
And the takeaway close is exactly what I personally would use in these situations, right? So you have to remember a takeaway close is about getting people back on the same page, which works quite often, but you are definitely risking the relationship because they could choose not to. In my opinion, though, that's the best option. Staying in a subservient mindset doesn't work. So if you can get out of it fast, great. If you can get on the same page, great. If you can't, it's okay. Like, we don't have to work with everybody. You don't have to work with everybody.
Right.
Like,
and I
that's
think,
the key.
As far as like risking the relationship goes, remember that if it's in a new relationship that you're trying to, develop and earn business from or whatever, at that point you have nothing to lose.
Yep.
So
you can pull some things out of the bag.
You can, Now, you be careful with it because we don't want to just go all over town like burning bridges, right?
Uh-huh.
But our job is to earn business, but understanding that at this moment there is literally nothing to lose
Yep.
is important.
And that puts you back in a powerful
It
position.
does.
Yep.
It does.
And people will respect you too. So, like, one thing I've learned about high earning people, people with teams or that run companies or manage lots of people, is sometimes a subservient mindset appearance is more of a defense mechanism to protect their time.
Mm.
And they don't really respect people that can't stand up for themselves.
Oh,
So they
good
throw
point,
it out
yeah.
there, and if you just stand up for yourself and
Yeah,
level up is what I call it.
that's a great
Then
point.
if you level up, then they like, oh, like I'll turn, like no one ever says that to me, so I'll listen to you, right?
Absolutely.
So I just gave you a real good example in lending because I always find it fascinating. And I'm gonna say it really bluntly. I would never say this directly, but to make sure everyone this listening gets the point across, right? So there are, as you might know in the world, plenty of know-it-alls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's always funny to me when I have somebody that's bought and sold one house ever
Mm-hmm.
that knows it all, right?
Or even go up to 3 houses.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Go
they
up and go
right.
up to 3.
Shit, give them 10, right?
Facts.
So the mindset conversation that I would say a little bit differently and nicer, but the thought process is, hey, listen, I love that you've done your research and you've definitely had some experience in the area. You said you closed 3 houses in your lifetime, correct?
Yes.
Right. So I help about 50 a month every month for the last 20 years. So I've got thousands of these deals under my belt. I promise you I have something I can teach you.
Yep.
Right. So that is an example of risking the relationship for sure.
Right.
To level up to a point where, look, if you are just going to talk to me and listen and assume that I'm this person, we don't have to work together. That's okay.
That's
Go work
totally
with an
fine.
order taker from, wherever.
Yeah.
But if you do want to talk to me and listen and get some advice, I for sure have something to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, in my opinion, an example of a way to remove yourself from a subservient mindset in whatever you're dealing with. And you can apply this across the board. You think about how many situations that somebody's talking to you this way. In a really, the nasty underbelly of some marriages, right?
Yeah.
One person is
person's
being
in charge.
subservient to the other person.
Yeah.
Right up until they get a smack across the face and get leveled up on, right?
Yeah.
I am not endorsing smacking people in the face. Okay, it's just for the record. But you get the proverbial idea of, hey, listen, right? Like what Chrissy said to me. I guess that's a perfect example. And you know exactly what I'm about to say. When Chrissy and I were in a decent little argument and she said, Josh, you're not near as good looking with half your assets. I was like, wow, that was a proverbial smack across the face. You win.
You win.
We will talk like normal humans,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's just a great starting point. Like mindset wise, you have to get out of that subservient mindset. So that takes us to the second mindset, right? So the second mindset is called the gunfighter mindset. And the gunfighter mindset, just literally think of the Old West. Think of 2 people that are quick drawing. Like there's no good ending here. Somebody's going to die.
Somebody's going to get hurt.
Somebody's going to win.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to lose. But once again, the relationship is lost forever, right? So when you think about gunfighter mindsets, like, give me an example of something that you've run across or what that might look like or how you might get out of it.
I mean, I think, because we're in real estate, there's so many times where agents come out of the gate really aggressive with us, whether it be over closing date or appraisals or whatever, but the negotiations or the beginning of the relationship, at least the relationship for the next 30 to 45 days, is aggressive. And, it's like, I just want to, we have a vested interest in closing this property and not making everybody miserable along the way. So I always find it interesting. It makes me feel like, what are you so mad at?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Yeah, I'll give you another example.
Cheerios?
So anyone that's been in our industry before has for sure seen this, where it's like the scarecrow. Like when I think about the gunfighter mindset, it's the title. There's lots of people involved in helping somebody get into a home, right? So you have the title company, appraisers, realtors, lenders, everybody. And whenever a problem comes up, somebody is pointing a finger at everybody else.
Always.
and just throwing them on the bus and making everybody look bad, whether it's real or not.
Yes.
But it's just the gunfighter mindset. It's like
Right.
it's a zero-sum game.
You are wrong.
You're wrong.
I am
I'm right. That's it. Exactly right. So when you think about this in a negotiation scenario, it is again, if somebody's in a subservient situation, typically they're going to get a term dictated to them, which is not normally a win-win scenario.
Right.
It can be it can work. So think real estate. Think you got a $500,000 house that two realtors are negotiating on, both for their client's behalf, but literally they get so foot in the ground, won't back up, won't have a conversation, that they're literally jeopardizing this deal for both the seller who wants to sell, the buyer that wants to buy,
Right.
because they want to prove that they're right and they can get the last $1,000 out the other side,
Yeah.
right? But pushing it to a point where it could cost the entire deal. Like, because
Cost
who
the
wants
whole
to
deal.
negotiate and work with if they're starting this way up front, why the hell would they not get
Right.
worse over the next 30 days, right?
Yeah.
So what I've always found the best way to get out of a gunfighter kind of mindset is just to put it on the table, out in the open, call it what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Say
So, right. It's literally point out, it's like, so let's just pretend you and I are the agents and we're fighting over $1,000 on a $500,000 deal. Right. So, Brent, I feel like we got off on the wrong page here. Right. So, I feel like the way this is going, that if we keep going down this way, you might win your $1,000. We might win the $1,000. The reality is that I for sure will never show another property ever that you have listed, or you won't if we keep this way. Like, I don't want to be one of those realtors that won't take their clients to future listings just because of one bad experience over 1/500th of a deal. 1/500th.
Yeah.
So can we like start over and like just talk about this and figure out if is there no way we can meet in the middle, right? You know, the reason why I said it kind of that way is I really do believe that people don't wake up like wanting to be an asshole.
They're not trying to be an asshole.
They're not trying to be. Some people are,
Yeah.
but most aren't trying to be.
Yeah.
Again, right? Like, you think they're about the realtor situation. They are supposed to have the best interest of their clients in mind, so they're negotiating ferociously for them, but sometimes too far.
Sometimes too far.
Right.
Right. And I do believe that even they do and are operating in what they believe to be the best thing for their client. So I think the intentions are in the right spot. The method of getting there is what really starts to get off track.
Yeah, and it goes back to communication. And, this day and age with thousands of modes of communication, I think that you can put something in a text that is definitely going to be taken the wrong way.
Right.
The email definitely be taken the wrong way. Marking up a contract by an attorney, for sure. Push the glasses up the nose, going to be taken the wrong way, right? All in the best interest of the clients in theory, but at the detriment of any future business and relationship, which is what you want to remove yourself from. So you can't always remove yourself from it. There are certain people that really are jerks. But for the most part, if you just point it out and say, look, I respect you a lot, and I see what you're doing for your client. That's awesome. I'm sure you understand I'm trying to do the same thing for my client. Isn't there something we can do to meet in the middle?
Yeah.
Right?
And saying, I feel like we're in a gunfight.
Yeah. Literally putting it on the table.
Yeah.
Which I love, because if it progresses to the last step, then the best mindset, which in theory we'd all want to be in, is the win-win. And we've all heard that term, and sometimes it's fictitious, but I think it's what's in everyone's best interest long term, which is, we all want to win, but no one wants to lose completely.
Yeah.
Right? Like, all of us most of the time are willing to give up something, but nobody's willing to give up everything. And so what I want you to think about with a win-win mentality is don't think literally 50-50. Okay? Win-win does not mean of that $1,000 deal, I give up 500, you give up 500.
Right.
But face is saved by giving up a little bit.
Sure.
So maybe I am in that driver's seat. Maybe, especially in 2021, it's a hot freaking market.
Right.
A seller doesn't have to fix everything if they don't want to. They could for sure put it back in the market, and somebody will probably buy it as is. But do we really want everyone to start over and lose this? Like, we're already 3 weeks down the road. Do we really want to do this over $1,000? Let me come back to my client with something. Let's meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And you might say, you know what, you're right. tell you what we'll do. We're going to fix this. We're not going to give up $1,000. We're not going to fix it all, but I know that the hot button is this leak in the toilet. I'll at least make sure that the water leak is fixed.
Yeah.
Right? So
Something
now I
that
can
you
go back
can
to my
live
client.
with.
Yeah, that is win-win. And so what I don't want people to think of is win-win is split it down the middle.
Split it down the
So
middle.
go back
Yeah, I
to
think
that
that's a good
book,
point.
the book that we talked about, the Never Split the Difference
Yeah.
negotiation book. It doesn't always mean like if I win, you're not going to jail, right?
Mhm.
Like, but it's better than being shot in the face,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you didn't get your ideal outcome of walking away with $1 million in the bag,
Mm-hmm.
but somewhere in the middle could literally be that you're going to survive this.
You're gonna survive.
And I just want to keep my person alive. And yes, I'm going to both keep my person alive and put you in jail for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
But it's better than me keeping my person alive by shooting you with my
For sure.
sniper,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So when I think about win-win, it is not a mutually exclusive concept from what I said earlier, which is never split the difference. It's the mindset of I'm going to win and I've got my acceptable piece of my negotiation, because we should all have tricks in our bags.
Right.
We can all give up things that have a perception of value that to us doesn't really matter at all.
Right.
Like think about, this is an interesting tangent to go down,
It
because
is,
you and
it
I love
is.
talking about this with
No, this
perception of
is
value.
Perception of value. So it's
Perception
very
of value typically is more valuable than value. Just be really clear about that. So this is a side note. This is not negotiations, but it's an interesting concept to understand for this. They say year after year that Dunkin' Donuts coffee in a blind test is way better and way more won in a blind test than Starbucks.
correct.
But you'll spend $1.50 for Dunkin' Donuts, you'll pay $6.50 for Starbucks, and the reason is because Starbucks has the perception of value because there's a barista who certainly has a degree making that, and Dunkin' Donuts just is made in a Folgers coffee pot, probably,
Yeah.
right? So what's more valuable? The perceived value. Well, what if Starbucks gave up and said, you know what? I'm so sorry we screwed up your order. We're going to go ahead and give you 50 cents off of, we're 50% off of everything because we made a mistake. So now they're literally going to charge you $3.25 instead of $6.50. You feel great. You won. They still made freaking money.
Yeah.
It takes 50 cents to make a cup of coffee. They made 700% on their money at $3.50.
Yes.
So, but you feel like, this is a good analogy, because if you have things you can give up that really aren't that big of a deal, like you can't go broke making a profit, like be
Sure.
really clear, then at the end of the day, you can win and meet in the middle without really meeting in the middle.
Yeah. But I also, the thing that comes to mind for me is like one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
Like what may mean nothing to me is super important to you.
Yep, absolutely.
And so I think we have to be open to what others may find of value, rather than putting our own idea of, oh, well, nobody would ever go for that, or why would anybody take that deal?
Well, what we also do is we project on people what we think is an acceptable solution versus asking. So it's super expensive not to ask.
Yes.
Going back to active listening skills from a
Mhm.
previous episode. But like, here's an example. What I go to as a business person when somebody's asking for something is what? What do I typically think they're probably asking me for?
Money.
Money, right? Like, you did something, so do this for me. Or this person
Right.
can do this for me, right? So let's just use an example of a mistake, right? So a lot of companies will just go right to comp, blah, 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 do whatever,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes I'll just ask and say, you know what, you're right. I made a mistake. What would you like me to do from here? Oh, I just wanted you to acknowledge it,
Right.
which is super fucking free.
Absolutely.
Like super fucking free. Just say you're sorry, because
Right.
for that person, they just wanted you to acknowledge that you made
Just
a mistake and
acknowledge
tell
it,
me
right.
what we're going to do to move forward, which is like not what I would have initially personally gone to,
Ever.
because I'm a business person, but that's the treasure versus the trash
Right.
analogy, right? So
Mhm.
asking that question is a piece of it, which we go back into, that setup, the conversation, the location, the questions that you might ask. It's like, what are we talking about here? What's on the
Yeah.
table to negotiate, right? Like when I think about builders' plans, okay, so first of all, here's a side. How do architects, do you know how architects make their money, like how they charge, out of curiosity? No? Do you know how architects charge, for the most part?
For the most part.
Yep.
By the set of plans and then hour? Is it it's
By the
set-
foot.
Oh, by the foot.
By the foot, right? So
Oh,
some
yeah,
of them will do the job for like cookie cutter stuff, but if you're doing a custom home, you're paying by the foot. So whether it's $6 a foot or $20 a foot or $50 a foot, to literally draw some papers. Like people will spend 20, 30, 100,000 bucks on architectural plans, literally to draw a really cool piece of paper.
Yeah.
Very important part of the process. But it's interesting to think about that, right? Well, so what do architects, not all, because there are some good ones out there, Jim, but what do architects typically do? Well, a lot of them that I've run across, if you say, hey, I don't want more than a 4,500 square foot house, how many feet did they draw in the first draft?
That amount?
6,000.
Oh.
Why? Because they're paid by the foot.
By the foot.
Yes. So you're asking for a 4,500 square foot house, but you want 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 3-car garage,
Oh, okay.
blah, 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 blah.
There's no way we can
There's
get
no
all
way we
there's
could squeeze
no
that in.
way.
So I
Okay,
drop a
see,
6,000. I
yeah.
drop 6,000. Why? Because I'm paid by the foot.
By the foot.
But now here's where the negotiation happens between husband, wife, architect, and builder, right? Because, okay, so at 6,000, I'll take my plans back. Remember, I had my budget with my builder off of 4,500 feet, but now this is what we all want. We said we want all this space. We want this office at home, right? So I go back to the builder, and builder's like, well, that's going to cost X. I'm like, well, shit, this isn't going to work for me either. So now the negotiation begins. And what the key is what are we all willing to give up? Like, I'd really like to have 2 toilets in my master suite, because, or my wife would, because I pee on the toilet every once in a while. I'm just joking. That's not true. But
it's totally true.
if it's in the middle of the night, you never
like
know what
every
happens.
boy
Right.
I feel like that's true with every boy.
But you see what I'm saying, right? Like, hey, my wife said it's really important to have a second, urinal in a different room. Like, hey, but that's going to cost us an extra. Like, we got to skim back somewhere.
Yeah.
That goes away. And we said we both wanted our own offices. Well, let's just join offices. Right? And we said that we needed 4 bedrooms with a guest room. Well, what if we made the office have a fold-out couch? That could be a guest room for when mom comes in town once every 6 months.
Interesting example, yeah.
But what are we willing to give up is a big piece of this negotiation. And that whole key of the perception of value versus value doesn't mean you lose in that negotiation.
Right.
You just have to know what both players are playing with. And the more prepared you are to know what you can give up and not go behind is really, really important.
Yeah.
So what that really starts with then is asking for more than you really want, right? If I ask for more than I want in anything, I want A, B, C, D, and F, A, G for this price.
Right.
So I can give up in both price and what I asked for to settle
Then
back
you'll
down.
land somewhere
I'll land where I want to be.
where you want to be.
And only I know where I really want to be. So my job is to negotiate above that. So there's this, we did this in our team years ago. Do you remember this?
Yes.
The
houses.
Yeah, the house price.
Yes.
So there's this exercise we were given. I think this is from a Vistage meeting from years ago. It was a Vistage meeting. And brought this exercise back to my team just for fun stuff to understand. And so basically we gave out 2 sheets of paper. So half the team, they were going to be the contractor. The contractor, what we didn't know, what the other side of the room didn't know. So let me give you both sides. So this contractor needs the job. Like, they just had a massive job fall apart right before this meeting. And if they can't get this job and make at least $30,000, then they're going to have to lay some people off. Okay. On this end of the spectrum, you've got a home buyer that wants to add on this addition, and they've had a $100,000 budget. Okay. What the contractor knows is that it is only going to cost $20,000 of raw materials and actual cost to do this addition. So if I can sell it for 50, then I get the 30, keep everyone employed, what I need, and make the home buyer happy. But I don't know what the home buyer wants me to do it for.
Budget is.
And so I can't risk not doing too high because I might lose the job altogether. And if I lose the job, that's not a possibility.
That's not an option.
And the other side of the spectrum, I've got somebody that's got some rich pockets that I can spend $100,000. That's what I budgeted. I don't know he can do it for 50. Right?
Right.
So and that's a great little game to play to teach people what negotiations are like in real life, because we can all understand both ends of that spectrum. But what's interesting to me is how many people were so excited as the contractor for getting $52,000.
Right.
Right?
I remember this. I failed miserably at this little.
And then there were other contractors that literally got 95.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some homeowners that were super excited that they were able to negotiate a $90,000 contract.
Right. Knowing they could have.
And then there were other ones that got them literally at 50,000. right? So you have this dynamic where if you don't understand and start working on negotiation skills, like that is a single instance in a
Leading to
single
things.
home buyer or small business life that has a $50,000 variance, which is more than most people's salaries per year.
Yeah, huge.
That one
huge.
single negotiation, which people don't think that much about, but what if you magnify that times 100 of those scenarios, small, medium, and large over a lifetime? That's the difference of being a millionaire or not being able to retire over
Totally,
a lifetime. It's
yeah.
super interesting to
It
me,
is
right?
interesting,
So
yeah.
this is why, going back to negotiation defines profitability. This is
Profitability.
super interesting to understand.
Yeah.
So I know we've got, where are we at with time?
Yeah, where are we at on time?
You know what?
Yeah.
We need to go ahead and slow down because
Yeah.
I know you guys have been listening for too long and you're probably about done with your walk with your dog. It's been 45 minutes. So we'll finish up the rest of this segment at our next episode. But
Which
thank
will
you for
be
joining
the-
us.
Yes, it'll be the actual negotiation
Skills
to
and
use.
understanding commitment to your value.
Yes, totally. So thank you for listening. Tell your friends. As always, we appreciate the support and the following and the sharing. So continue to do that. If you have anything you want to tell us, ask us, or otherwise, you can email us at sigmansense@gmail.com. And I think that's it.
That's it. Call us, reach out to us, and I'd love your feedback. I really do appreciate you. Next time on Sigman Sense, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.